Second episode of my show, Mental Melodies. My name is Carmynn Bradley. I'm going to do a little recap of what I talked about last week and who I am for those of you that are just tuning in. Again, my name is Carmynn Bradley. I'm a singer, songwriter, actress, model, comedian one day, and talk show host. I am doing this show as a way of bringing awareness to mental health. I have a feeling that the show is going to develop into something beyond me, like, you know, when something's supposed to happen and you feel like you're in the driver's seat, but really something beyond you is driving. That's kind of what it feels like right now. So I do have a vision for it, but I'm also accepting that I'm in a new space and that I'm creating something as I go. So I guess with that, something I wanted to do in the first segment was be a little bit vulnerable with y'all, because this is a show about mental health, and I want to preface this by saying, like, I am an expert. I have a master's degree in professional counseling. I have a master's in education. I have all these like resume things I can throw at you. I do believe that I know what I'm talking about, but I also know that I am a human and I have my own mental health struggles. And so something I was talking about last week is just this like duality. I don't want to present myself as an expert on mental health that's going to give you all of the tips and you just have to go out and use the tips and you're going to be fine, because that's not the way it works. Actually, I'm a person who does have a lot of knowledge and experience, but who still struggles with mental health. Give you a little bit of a story from yesterday. I was totally, completely overwhelmed. My emotions, like, I could not regulate them. I couldn't find my way in a parking lot, and I was like crying behind my sunglasses, and people had to come save me. And then 3 activities later, I'm sitting in the parking lot about to film actually the music video for a song I wrote for this show, and I was so overwhelmed that I had to go home. And it was interesting because I was in this space where I wasn't certain. I wasn't certain if I was self-sabotaging or if I was like taking a mental health night. I didn't take the day. But sometimes when your mental health is upticking, like you're having an episode, you could call it, it's hard to tell. It's hard to tell like what the right choice is or what the voices in your head are saying. And I've been on this journey of trying to discover the voices in my head and, like, you know, which is that quiet voice that's telling me the right step and which of my voices are paranoid. And sometimes I just can't tell. And there was this podcast I listened to, I can't remember the name of it, so I apologize for not referencing it correctly, but there's these 2 brothers, something like the science podcast. Anyway, I'll find it and I will let you know. But they were talking about this, how to discover your anxious voice versus your intuitive voice. And that's a question that a lot of people have, and a question that I have been working through for some time. And basically the gist of their 1-hour episode was that the only way to know is to make a decision, and then usually you know afterward. So I came home and I was like, man, I could have finished this music video and I could have felt more productive and all of these things. But what really happened is I sat down and I had a heartfelt conversation with my roommate, and I felt lighter and some of that overwhelm kind of went away. And so I felt like it was the right decision for me. And while there are times where I have, you know, self-sabotage or leaned into doubt or whatever, every situation like that is an opportunity to learn, you know. So I learned about a little bit about my limits, and I did learn about how I do have a lot of doubt coming into this thing, but I've also learned that I'm leaning into it and that I'm past that a little bit more than I used to be. Like, I think I said last week that if you had come up to me when I was really sick, like 10 years ago, I wouldn't have been able to do this, because I would have been so stuck in my emotional body and in my anxiety and the things that were kind of like driving me then, that I would have been just venting about that instead of talking about my journey through those things. Whereas now, like, fast forward 10 years later, after I was diagnosed with lupus, and after I was diagnosed with anorexia, and after I was diagnosed with, gosh, I could give you like the whole list of all these things that I've experienced, right? I've been able to see all these patterns and the ways that I deal with things, and then find my limitations and like move past them. So now I have actually like a story to tell. And the interesting thing I was telling my roommate yesterday about was that I always thought that the way my story would get out there would be in a book. So I've been writing for upwards of 13 years. I write every single day. But recently I gave away a lot of books and I burned a lot of papers and I burned a lot of journals and I let go of a lot of the energy attached to things that I had been writing and saying and thinking about for so many years. And as I've been shedding those things, as I was telling my director Maria, like things have just been coming to me, like opportunities that are right for me right now. So like this show is an opportunity for me to say a lot of the stuff that I wrote down, but say it with an audience. Sometimes when you're writing, you're just writing into the void and it makes you feel more lonely, and I think one day I will probably take all of this and compile it into a book that I can then publish. But first I need to speak it. Like first I need to heal my voice and say the words that have been, on my chest for a while or whatever. So yeah, that's a bit more about me and my journey. I do think that, I guess the point of this was that my journey and my vulnerability is going to be just as important as the stuff that I've learned and I've known and I've studied. Like I've helped people start to heal from things like depression and post-traumatic stress disorder and anxiety, but healing is not linear. It's not like I said, it's not that you do these things and then you're done and now you're healed. Because if that were the case, then I wouldn't have had a mental breakdown in a parking lot yesterday. I would be like, I don't even know what fine means. Like I would be stable, I guess. Anyway, I am like a normal person dealing with mental health issues. I'm going to take that one step back because I don't want to label myself as normal. And also, I don't want to downgrade some of the struggles that I have had, because I think sometimes maybe I underestimate, or maybe I don't quite understand how many people either don't go through what I've been through or don't understand what I've been through that maybe could benefit from understanding. And sometimes I need to cut myself a little bit of slack, right? If I'm going through these things and I'm healing from these things while I'm growing and while I'm doing a million different things and, doing background on movies and writing songs and learning the guitar and teaching the guitar and all the things that I do, and I'm still struggling with all of this stuff. I need to be honest about those limitations and find those places and areas in my growth to continue to heal and to continue to rest. And so I need to give space to myself for that. And I think that for those who are struggling, who maybe have never sought any type of healing, that's a message that I guess is really, really strong for me this week, is just to make sure that you are honest with yourself about your limitations, but as a way to move past them. That's something that has come to me a lot recently, or throughout this week, I guess, is just that your limitations are not the end. And I think that's where, especially with mental illness, when you get diagnosed in your 20s, it feels like that's the end. This is the ceiling. I am anxious, and so therefore work will always be hard for me. Or I am depressed, and so therefore XYZ, and whatever that means for you. But I think that getting diagnosed is actually an opportunity. It's like a mirror to yourself and to the patterns that you have. And if you decide to look at that as an opportunity, then you can move forward from it. And like I said, accept your limitations, but only as a way to move past them, not to just lean into them. And I think that can be a little controversial, and there's thoughts that I have, about that, because obviously there's the disability world out there. Things that people need, accommodations that people have, and that is very important. But I think oftentimes, this is my show, so I'm going to rock the boat. I think oftentimes people have these limitations that they just sink into. It's like sinking sand. I am depressed, that's who I am. But that's not true. You have depression. Or I would even argue to say that, oh man, so many things I'm saying right now that just like so many people will probably not agree with me. I just don't think that mental illness has to be permanent. I don't think that you have to have depression forever, right? Like my whole message like last week was that healing is real. So then there's the flip side of the coin. Well then, Carmynn, like, why do you still struggle with depression? And those are things that I think I'm still figuring out. I'm still asking myself why I still go through these periods. And part of it, I think, is just that life doesn't stop. You know, like those of you, friends maybe who are watching or family, you know, I just went through a divorce. So naturally, my body's going to respond to those things and I'm going to experience intense emotions. And I just moved out 3 weeks ago. So things are crazy. Like, you know, going back to what I said, cut yourself some slack. But there are some stuff I do go through, like paranoid thoughts and things that, like I said, maybe the mainstream world doesn't understand or will never admit, that I do wonder about that. Like, there's not all the research is conclusive about where that comes from. Like, is it genetic? Is it trauma? Am I just like the special black sheep that was born with those tendencies, those kinds of things? But sometimes what happens in your healing journey that I think I'll explain over time is just that you do naturally go through ebbs and flows. So while during the period when I was teaching and I was teaching yoga and I was doing breath work every day, I felt a little more stable. Right now, life has kind of rocked the boat. So I'm doing great things and I've healed a lot, but there are episodes that come up. And like I said, every single time that you are told that you're sick or whatever, it is an opportunity. So if you have a little uptick in illness, then you can start to figure out like why that happened, what's triggering you, blah, blah, blah. There's so much to say. We're going to go on a little bit of a break and I'm going to come back, sing a song, and talk some more.
Traditional TV is going away. Hollywood is starting to fade. People are demanding real stories from real people. Our voices are now being heard in our own way. Podcasts, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and TikTok Live are becoming the norm. Internet TV has now reached the highest demand in human history. Social media shows is now the new media of the century.
Shopping for a new home is an exciting time, and the mortgage process just got easier. New American Funding's all-digital mortgage application takes all the hassle out of applying for a mortgage. Simply put in your information and we do the rest. Safely and securely verify your income, assets, and tax information electronically. Plus, you get access to track the progress of your application anytime, anywhere. Less questions, less paperwork, less hassle, and instant access. Ready to start shopping for your new home? Let's get started.
Now on digital and DVD.
Hit it.
Space Wars: Quest for the Deep Star is an epic sci-fi adventure.
Do what needs to be done.
An edge-of-your-seat wild ride.
We have company.
Tons of popcorn-munching fun. 5 stars. A love letter to the sci-fi films of the 70s and 80s. With plenty of action and fun for all. You need to see it. You really do.
The captain just decided it's time to go.
I am ready for a sequel. Experience a bold new adventure. Space Wars: Quest for the Deep Star.
A good old-fashioned adventure.
Now on digital and DVD.
Hi everybody, we're back. This is Mental Melodies with Carmynn Bradley. Part of the gist of this show, which will come to fruition over time, is combining like music with talk, because music has been very healing, but also I just love an opportunity to play, so here I am. This song is from Miley Cyrus. It's called Used to Be Young, so if you haven't heard it, that's cool. You can hear it from me for the first time. Then yeah, I'll talk about the message afterwards. So anyway, here goes. Truth is bulletproof, there's no fooling you. I don't dress the same. You and who you say I was yesterday have gone our separate ways. Turns out living fast, something for the past, 'cause that's for chasing cars. Turns out crowded rooms lead to broken hearts and going way too far. I know I used to be crazy. I know I used to be wild. You say I used to be wild. That's 'cause I used to be young. You tell me time has done changed me. That's fine, I've had a good run. I know I used to be crazy. That's 'cause I used to be young. Take one, pour it out. It's not worth crying about the things you can't erase. Like tattoos and regrets, words I never meant, and ones that got away. Took my living fast, left it in the past, 'cause took another road. Turns out crowded rooms lead to open hearts and better. I'm losing my words today, guys. I know I used to be crazy. I know I used to be fun. You say I used to be wild. That's 'cause I used to be young. You tell me time has done changed me. That's fine, I've had a good run. I know I used to be crazy. That's 'cause I used to be young. Oh, 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 yeah. Oh, 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 oh. I know I used to be crazy, messed up, but God, was it fun? I know I used to be wild. That's 'cause I used to be young. You tell me time has done changed me. That's fine, I've had a good run. I know I used to be crazy. That's 'cause I used to be young. Thank you. Oh man, I was losing my words there for a minute, but that's all right. That's the beauty of like creating something and just doing something new. Oh, thank you so much. Is just taking it one step at a time. The first time that I performed on Priscilla Moy's hot seat, I dropped my pick and it fell into that little circle, and I just kept playing, and I've been learning like how to do that. In this whole journey, I think I've just been learning how to like trip a little bit and then move forward. You know, take those moments of rest and move forward. Give myself permission to start over all the time. That's a lesson that I can't remember exactly when I started learning it, but when you first start to try to make changes, it's very hard. Changing habits is very hard. This is nothing new, and something that I wanted to preface also is that like a lot of the stuff that I'm going to share sounds so profound to me, and maybe it's falling on new ears, but for a lot of you, maybe you've already heard it before. But it's so important to just keep getting that message out there. Like, just because there's a million people on social media or TikTok talking about mental health doesn't mean that everyone is seeing it. And the interesting thing in my life now is that like I'm watching kind of like my two worlds meld together. I was a big part of the healing world for a while, and now I'm a big part of the performer industry. And I have a lot of friends who are performers who don't really talk about their mental health or their health in general. And so maybe that's why I went through the healing world and went to the performer world, so that now I can reach an audience of people that need to hear about health. But anyway, this song, I think maybe part of the reason I was messing up a little bit today is just because this song has been hitting me hard. And it's obviously about Miley Cyrus's journey, and I can empathize with her and the message of the song. I cannot empathize with being in front of millions of people and them like watching your young 20s, and like teenage years and all of that. Like everybody in America knows what she's talking about. But for me, I did have a very tumultuous 20s. I was really, really depressed when I was teaching high school. I did not really have a life outside of work at all. I had friends, but I didn't have a social life, I guess is the way that you could put it. But by the end of it, I felt like I didn't really have any friends at all, because I went from having a lot of people and doing a lot of things in college to just slowly getting into that American hamster wheel where my whole life was just work, and I was teaching high school and then coaching cheer and doing all these things, and then I would come home and I had no energy for anybody else. So that's part of it. If you're on the hamster wheel, it's hard to get out of that. And that can affect your mental health tremendously. So obviously, like, I can sit here and be like, well, now I have a lot of my dream jobs and my schedule is not the way that it was when I was teaching. So maybe, I'm blessed in that way. I think it was very, very hard to try and be healthy when I was teaching. That's just the gist of it. Faustino, if you know him, he plays piano. He does a piano karaoke improv. It's like once a month at the Square Bar. I'm trying to like promote all of the people and performers I know when they come to my head. But he's a teacher and he posts about it. And it's funny because I think sometimes people come into your life to remind you of times that you need to reflect on. And so this is a moment in my life, not a long moment, a 10-year moment, where I was really struggling. And in your 20s, part of it is just that you're just not aware. My director and I were talking about when you're a kid, like your subconscious mind is in control, your all impulse. Well, that doesn't really like end until you make a choice for it to end. Like you can sit back and let we'll call it programming because that's what it is. Let that take over for your whole life. And you can just have the beliefs that you've always had and that you were told you were supposed to have, and that can run your life. And it's really, really challenging to change those things about yourself. And that's why I think, going back to what I was saying about opportunity, like illness was an opportunity for me. And I truly think that it is an opportunity. If you're, there's obviously exceptions to everything, but for me and for mental illness in general, I think it's an opportunity for you to break those beliefs and decide who you want to be, because you have to. And in the beginning, it totally sucks. Like, it was not fun to be a 21-year-old with lupus, like wondering if my lifespan was way shorter. And that can still not be fun now, when I have to sleep for 48 hours because I just started a new job and then can't hang out with anybody on the weekend. Like, there's stuff I have to do for my body, right? Accept your limitations. But what lupus did for me, which is a chronic illness if you don't know, but it was in conjunction with my mental health because they're all tied together anyway. But that brought me to yoga, and it brought me to learning about nutrition and stuff that I didn't really know, because the only thing I thought about growing up was either like I'm eating so that I have energy for my sports, or I'm eating to lose weight so that I can look like my older sister or some famous person, And so all of that was tied in with eating disorder stuff. I mentioned earlier that I was diagnosed with anorexia. I also had bulimia at one point. But those things, like I said, they're not permanent. If I were to go to a therapist today, I would not fit the criteria for anorexia or bulimia. That doesn't mean that it's totally gone. Like I mentioned before, I go through upticks with that as well, where I'll have these thoughts that come up. I start to see myself in the mirror differently. Body dysmorphia, is very real. You can literally see something, right, that's different in the mirror. So these things pop up and I start to notice, and then either I deal with them in ways that I have in the past, or I take an opportunity to reflect on maybe something new that I need to learn to overcome it this time. I had mentioned that it's an opportunity for you to see like triggers. So being in a relationship is often a trigger for me with my body, because all of a sudden I'm worried about what somebody else is thinking of my body instead of just me. So that's one thing. And again, then you learn to accept those limitations and be like, these are thoughts that I'm having, and start to practice not giving power to those thoughts. Or like I said, you can lean back and you can be like, like I'm hit again, and just, I don't know, like let those thoughts drive you. And they really can. It's interesting how they like test you. My belief system, I don't know, fits within, I guess, a different paradigm. And so I'm not sure who's listening right now, but I'm thinking about what JC, if you watch some of the other shows on social media shows, he talks a lot about God and the devil and like being tested and that kind of thing. As somebody who grew up Christian, I can fit my own beliefs into that framework, right? So even these moments where I have upticks of mental health, you can label those as a devil or a demon or a temptation if you want to. You know, it's like everything kind of falls in the same category if you think about it. Like the way that religion is just people trying to make sense of all of the same things. So anyway, for me, when I have like upticks in mental health, it's like a temptation to be like, are you going to be who you used to be? Or are you going to use this as an opportunity to grow? Are you going to use this as an opportunity to help people? Like I thought maybe the reason I'm having a week-long panic attack these last couple weeks is simply because I need to help other people get through that. And I do think, in a way, I guess I'm saying that now, I believe that that's true, because I think it was important for me to sit here and reflect on like being humble throughout this process. And I do believe that I'm here for a reason, and that there are things that I need to say that people need to hear. But without vulnerability and without being honest about my struggles, it's going to be dishonest, and it will fall flat, and it won't help, because if you're thinking, oh, she's completely healed and she's completely fine, but I'm not, and I'm doing everything she says I need to do, then obviously what she says doesn't work. So I think I will definitely talk in the next segment like just about that, and about how you can keep hope alive despite the fact that you keep getting hit. Like I think in the thick of mental illness, it feels very much when you're at the beach, there's like waves behind you and you cannot get to shore, and they just keep knocking you down, and you're stuck in that, like, you know, that washing machine feeling. I don't know. I assume everybody's been in the waves. I was like an ocean kid growing up. So anyway, that's a metaphor for that. So how do you get out of that? We'll talk about that.
This show is brought to you by Michelle Kubiak. If you want to buy or sell a home, call Michelle, 702-683-6576.
John is an employee at one of the most famous firms in the city of New York, so his job is very hectic, and he realized that it is necessary for him to go and finally take a vacation. But he went on a vacation without planning out the details, and wasn't able to truly enjoy where he went because he had to think about so many things that he didn't plan for. Instead of enjoying his time away from work, he came back with more stress that he was not able to take full advantage of his vacation. But this year, a coworker suggested him to try World Ventures this time to make his vacationing more enjoyable and less stressful. They do not require you to plan anything outside of your transportation, which is also available at discounted rates. Your stay, your transport, and many meals are planned by the club. John liked the idea very much. He tries World Ventures, and his experience with the club was amazing, as he made many friends there with whom he had a great time. John recommends that everyone should try this club, as they are the best in business. See how the VIP-vacation-club.com can give you the right experience without all the hassle. Enjoy the VIP experience that only World Ventures provides.
Got Films is a full-service production company that provides motion picture quality content and production services for use in the film and TV industry. Looking for a seasoned crew, high-quality equipment, or other production services for your film, TV, commercial, corporate convention, sports, news, or interview project? your search stops here. Some of our projects include NASCAR, American Restoration, Pawn Stars, Counting Cars, Top Chef, BattleBots, Forge and Fire, and Street Outlaws. We have also produced over 60 feature films and documentaries. We're ready for all your needs. Whatever your project, whatever your budget, big or small, Got Films got you. GotFilms.com.
Hi everyone, we're back. Mental Melodies. This is our third little segment here. My name's Carmynn Bradley, so if you're just tuning in, welcome. Thank you for being here. For those of you who are still listening, thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. Something I mentioned like in passing in the last segment was just like my voice. And as a singer, like and a speaker and a counselor and a yogi and all of these things, I've been healing my voice, and that's something that like you can even tell it's a little tired right now because I've been emotional this last week. But even from this week or from last week to this week, if you were listening last week, like things are just flowing more because I think, like I said, I'm here for a reason to say stuff that like needs to be said and to share stories that have needed to be shared. And this is like the time for them. And the thing about healing a voice that I don't think I understood until this moment is that you need people to hear you in order to heal your voice. And this is making me emotional because I think that was part of the issue when you're in those moments where you're in those waves that I talked about and you are just like crashing and you're getting hit from one thing after the other. Like life hits you, somebody dies, you lose a job, you have depression, etc. All these things, and you're just like, I can't get out. The thing about then having mental illness issues that you don't feel like you can talk about is that it starts to shut down your ability to speak about your experiences. So there were times in my life where I couldn't seek help. I never finished a therapy appointment or didn't go back to the second one, or I didn't feel like I could be honest about like how I dealt with my brother's death, for example, which is something I've talked about on this show. And so I was just going through my life, working and showing up to work on time when I could and doing the best that I could and giving from wells that were empty to my students and to everybody around me. And I was just like pulling energy from nowhere and I was completely depleted. And then like I was just losing my ability to sing and to speak and to share. I became very introverted, and it's funny, I went to a comedy show last week, Taylor Tomlinson. She's on Netflix, and she's super cool. I went to her show, and it was the weirdest thing. So it was like everything that she said was a thought that I had, and sometimes you just have spirits like that you connect with. She had like religious trauma growing up, and so she's, coping with it through this completely superfluous and awesome career. She's totally cool. I lost what I was saying. I went there and she was talking about something that had to do with the voice. But I can backtrack a little. I think it will come back to me. But as it comes to the voice thing and just like me healing from it, it's a really beautiful thing. And like I said, having an audience is really, really important for that, because if you're not heard, it just doesn't matter. Like you can't keep talking to a wall. And I guess that goes back to what I was saying about when I was writing. Like I would write and write and write and write and write, but nobody was reading it and I wasn't sharing it. And so it was valuable to its own whatever it did for me, but it wasn't valuable in the sense that it was helping me share my story because I wasn't sharing it with anybody. And so being able to share my story in a way is healing for me and then also like healing for others. And I can't remember the thing about Taylor Tomlinson, which is so sad. But she's really cool. I've been thinking a lot this week about just like being a woman, and I think this is more of a honeybees thing, so maybe I'm going off track a little bit, but just where I'm at in my life and being completely independent and doing things like carrying water jugs upstairs that I would ordinarily like ask a boy to do has been really, really interesting. And then to be in this position where I don't know how many people are going to listen, but I feel like over time a lot of people will listen, and that's something that's like empowering and beautiful, but also humbling, because I have to sit here in this chair and I felt like I had to convince you of why you should listen to me. I don't feel that way anymore. I don't feel like I have to sit up here and be like, well, I went to school for 7 years to get this degree about mental health, so you must listen because I am ethos, when it comes to that. Now I just feel like I'm here and I'm saying what needs to be said, and I think that those who want to listen will. Last week I was reviewing the episode and I actually listened to it, which was weird because like the past talk shows I've done, I wouldn't listen to myself. But I found myself intrigued by the words and like by the cadence of my own voice. And so yeah, I just think it's really cool that this is an opportunity for other people to hear that as well and to listen to what I have to say. Let me see. I was going to talk about intentions. Because I think at the end of my last segment, I kind of gave you that metaphor about being in the waves and being knocked down. And then I followed that up with, well, I'll tell you how to get out of it. And once again, like, it's not step by step. And if I give you my journey, it's not like it's just going to be, I did this, I did that, I did this, I did that, and then everything was good. It's been like definitely a long time in the making, like at least 5 years of where I could trace back and be like, this was the moment that I really decided like I was going to try and be in control of my own life and have autonomy. But intentions are kind of where it started for me. And I guess before that, how it really started was with yoga, because I was diagnosed with lupus. And then, like I mentioned earlier, I found yoga, and it completely changed my relationship with my body, my relationship with food, most importantly, my relationship with my body image. It helped me heal again from like eating disorders. And so in yoga, they talk about intentions a lot. If you've ever gone to a yoga class, a yoga teacher will like invite you to set an intention at the beginning of class. And so they'll say stuff like, it could be a word or a phrase, or you could send energy out to somebody who needs it, blah, blah, blah. So I took that concept and then applied it to my own life. And again, like a lot of these things that I'm saying have been so profound for me. But they are not new. Like I said, it came from yoga classes I was taking. You can go on, mental health social media platforms and you'll see stuff about intentions. But like I said, I'm here for a reason, saying these things to audiences who maybe haven't heard it or maybe need a reminder, because I know I've needed a reminder too. As in a way, I feel like I'm kind of starting over, but not, and all that will become clear over time. But anyway, intentions for me are just one word or one phrase that you start your day with, and it's basically to help you shift your mindset. This is something that I was struggling with the last few weeks, I guess kind of coming out of the depths of the divorce drama and all that stuff I was going through. It was like at some point I had to wake up and make a choice about like, am I going to be a positive person, or am I going to like lean into this energy that's kind of been like latched onto me for a couple months. And it's been tough to shift into an area of gratitude, even though there's so many things to be grateful for. I have so many beautiful, lovely things going on in my life, and so many beautiful, lovely people around me to help me and to listen to me. And yet, like, I was still waking up grumpy or, like feeling super emotional and just lacking that gratitude. And like, honestly, I think that fits along with that vein where I said, like, I need to be vulnerable. I think this show and the opportunity to be on here is really what gave me that push. It pushed me out of those waves and was like, climb up onto shore and like find some gratitude and like look up at the sunlight being like everything in my life that's good. Because I couldn't sit here and tell you this and then go home and then be bitter, and that's one of the hardest things I've had to learn, is that is a choice. And that kind of comes along with like the controversy, that's a weird word, controversy, that I mentioned earlier, where like, if I'm telling you that like depression is not permanent, that's not gonna sit well with everybody, because it's easy, quote unquote easy. It's not in its own way, but it's easy in some ways to just be like, I am depressed. You know, I went through this and that, and therefore, like, life happened to me, and I have a right to be whatever. I have a right to be angry. I have a right to be sad. I have a right to blah, blah, blah. And while that's true, you have a right to feel these emotions, they do not have to become your main state of being. And that is hard. That's hard to own up to. It is really, really hard to take a step outside of yourself and look at yourself and be like, bro, you know, like, you have however many days left to live. You could have one day left to live. If you're going to choose to keep being that way, even if you know now that you have a choice to be a different way, then at the end of the day, it was a choice. But if you backtrack, right, to like when you first found out you were sick or something, like if I go back to when I first got lupus and I first was diagnosed with depression, I was a struggle bubble all the way. And there was no way for me to find any kind of autonomy because, for one thing, when you're teaching and driving an hour and a half either way, you just don't have the time, so you're just surviving. So if you're in that survivor mode, like, for one thing, you just got to take a step back. We all need to do that. That seems like the theme for today. Take a step back, take a deep breath. You know, you evaluate what you need in your life, because if you don't have any time to look at yourself and decide who to be, then I don't think you're living life at all. And that's another thing I'm learning right now in this moment. But I just think if you're not in the driver's seat, then what's the point? One of the intentions, because that's kind of what I'm talking about right now, right? Like, planting a word or a thought into your mind. I'm going to choose to be grateful, or I'm going to choose to be happy. That's life altering because you're affecting your subconscious mind. I lost track of what I was saying, but choice. So I'm theoretically the driver of my own car, right? The car being my life. But most people are not driving their own car. So this goes back to what I was saying in the first segment about beliefs. Like, what's really driving your car is the programming that I mentioned. Whatever your parents taught you about what life means and what it is to be an adult and what it is to be a woman or a man, or what it is to be tall or short or fat or skinny or whatever. All of those things are just running. And you can walk through life being led by your emotions without realizing it, right? So your anger is leading you one day and it's leading you on the freeway. That's something I've been struggling with lately. And you can keep doing that forever. You can keep having road rage and like letting things ruin your day and letting all of your beliefs just kind of take your life away. I'm very passionate about this now. I'm feeling it. I just really, really, really believe in autonomy. And I think that's a thing that I am most grateful for, perhaps, is that I feel like I have a choice. I have a choice of what I'm going to do for work and who's going to be in my life and all of these different things that I didn't have any say in before. So I think the ultimate goal over time in your healing is to get to that point where you're in the driver's seat. So if you're not at that point, right, like you don't feel like you have that autonomy yet, so then we go back to where to start. And like I said, that's with those intentions, with that gratitude, and I'll talk a little bit more about that after the break.
Traditional TV is going away. Hollywood is starting to fade. People are demanding real stories from real people. Our voices are now being heard in our own way. Podcasts, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and TikTok Live are becoming the norm. Internet TV has now reached the highest demand in human history. Social media shows is now the new media of the century.
Hi everyone, welcome back to Mental Melodies. Carmynn Bradley here. This is the last segment, so I have a couple more points I want to bring up, and then I guess I'll just wrap up for today. But don't you worry, I'll be back next week. So anyway, I was talking about intentions, and I think that's like, aside from, oh, actually there are so many things that I mentioned today that I want to take away from. It's like, being vulnerable, taking rest if you need it. But as a place to start, if you're like, wow, I feel a little motivated to kind of like change something, intentions is a good place to start. You just find one word, and you can make it difficult and reflect on your last day and decide what you need, or you can just pick the words that I've been posting on Instagram and use them and decide today I'm going to be grateful, or today I'm going to be focused, or whatever, and I'm going to continuously post those things so you can follow that Mental Melodies talk show. But what I wanted to do is kind of circle back to what I was talking about with the song and identity, and something I thought about is that, in order to shift from like I am sick or I have illnesses to like I am healing or I can overcome this, you have to get out of the illness being a part of your identity, and that can be really hard. So when I think back on those times when I just had to think back on those times. What's that song? Anyway, when I think back on those times, when I was teaching, I was depressed. Like that's who I was. I was traumatized. I was grieving. And it wasn't that I had those things or that I was suffering from those things. That is true. But to me, it was essentially who I was and who I became. Like I was going to be this sick person that wouldn't be able to work like a normal person, whatever that means, right? We'll problematize that over time. But I don't identify as sick anymore. I do go to therapy when I have extreme upticks that I need to deal with. And I do have a lot of tools, and I still do have body image issues, and I still do get very anxious, and I still do have emotions that overtake me sometimes, and I still do have pretty intense panic attacks, not as frequently and not daily like I used to, but I still experience all of these things. And I guess in a way, like if I were just healed and stable, I don't know that life would be boring necessarily, but I don't think that I would grow as much. So I have all these opportunities and tests in order to grow. But that's, again, a mindset thing, because like 2 weeks ago before I sat in this chair, I was feeling a little bit like, oh gosh, these things are coming up again. Like I don't have any control over them, blah, blah, blah. And maybe when they do rear their ugly heads, it feels that way, but it really is, again, a choice. You have a choice to look at those things and be like, okay, what can I heal from here? Or what was triggering me? Or do I just need to take a nap? Like that's something I have learned the hard way in the last couple of years, is just like when you're not in tune with your body, especially when you're on that hamster wheel, you just can't tell. Maybe you're just hungry, maybe you're just thirsty, maybe you're just tired, but if you're not resting and if your health is not a priority, then you're not going to realize those things. So that's something that I've had to learn, where it's like maybe I am having these uptick in symptoms, but if I sleep for 8 hours or however much I need, they dwindle down. And it's almost like we have, well, not almost, like we do, and I'll get into this in further episodes, but you just have multiple parts of yourself in your head. There's a technique, a psychotherapy technique that I know how to do, where you can go into the subconscious mind and talk to those parts, and that's where like inner child work comes in. So oftentimes when parts like that pop up and voices are talking to you, it doesn't have to be in that way, voices are talking to you. Sometimes they talk to me, but it can just be, those anxious things that you're thinking, or just like thoughts. Like if thoughts are popping up, you can see them. It doesn't mean that that's you, and we attach to our thoughts far too often, but oftentimes it's a part. Like there's something that you need, so an inner child part is popping up and asking you for that, but it doesn't know how to ask in the right way, so it's just going to make you want to cry all day or something like that. So it's a journey to learning what those voices are and what they mean for you and what parts are inside of your head and all of that. And it's interesting because the healing process can almost make you feel crazier sometimes, right? That we're not really allowed to like call people crazy, but gosh, I felt crazy at times. But when you really like I don't know, just like take a look at it. It makes more sense than it does feel like insane and crazy. Like, I don't know. I'm going into further thoughts right now because I think I'm just planning other episodes. So hopefully it sounds interesting to you because I will talk more about it. But anyway, I think that something I've been thinking about is just making friends with and accepting those parts of myself. So like I said, maybe I've had little episodes in the past couple of weeks for a reason. And that reason being that I do need to like go swimming in the ocean with the part of myself that was really struggling and like give her a hug and tell her it's okay. Like Miley Cyrus's song is all about that. Like I was crazy and you guys all judged me, but like my frontal lobe was literally not developed. You know, you don't get grace as like a superstar because you're doing everything in front of the camera, but that's something like, you know, you get, I hesitate to say you because I don't want to overgeneralize, but for me, I've been hesitant to like go back and say hi to people who saw me at times when I was not at my best, when I was struggling with alcohol or whatever it was that I was struggling with at the time. I've given you like half of the list of the things that I've dealt with, so more to come there. But there's a lot of shame that comes with admitting all of that, and so I had to be in a place that I'm at now where I can say those things without feeling judged, but it's also because I personally am pretty far removed from it. But you can still, anyway, go back and make friends with those parts of you that were doing the best that they could. And I think it just comes down to, like, really we all are doing the best that we can in any moment. And that's something that was one of my, you call it an intention. It's also called a mantra, like in yoga, something that you repeat. But really all it is just a statement that you repeat to like help yourself or put it out into the universe or make some kind of a promise. And so something that I repeated a lot when I was first kind of really committed to my healing journey was just do the best you can, or do what you can with what you have where you are. So that means that you might not have all of the resources and you might not have all of the answers and you might not have everything that you need financially even. Maybe you don't even like get enough to eat, but you can do what you can with what you do have where you are. And you can make plans to move forward from that. And that's essentially what I did. It's just like start over and say, okay, I don't have everything that I feel that I need, but I have what I have now. What can I do with that? And that includes like the knowledge and experience. And wherever you're at, like emotionally and all of that. Let me see. I think that's it for today. We have a couple of minutes, so I will do my little shout outs. That's perfect. Okay, so if you want to sponsor my show, I think that would be really awesome. Like I said last week, there's a lot of work that goes into it, a lot of rehearsal, and I do believe that I am here sharing lots of different messages that are going to reach a lot of different audiences, and I want to do a lot of good things in the mental health world and in the performer world. So if you feel like you can support that, that would be awesome. You can just email admin@socialmediashows.com. You can watch this show every weekday at 4 p.m. I would like you to also please follow the Mental Melodies Talk Show Instagram. And if you're here, you probably also follow Social Media Shows TV, but if you don't, give that a follow. My personal Instagram, where you can see some of the stuff I'm doing with acting and singing and all of that, is Carmynn_Bradley, and you can find me on Facebook. And then my last shout out is if you do want to ever come on the show and talk to me about stuff you've experienced, or if you want me to touch on a subject maybe that you're going through, you can email me, carmynnbradley@gmail.com, and just let me know. And that includes just anything maybe that like I said that touched you. Maybe you want to just talk to me about it. Feel free to reach out. And just thank you again for your eyes and your ears, and I will see you next week. I know I used to be crazy. I know I used to be wild. You say I used to be wild. That's 'cause I used to be young. You tell me time has done changed me. That's fine, I've had